Tenerife, aviation's darkest day. A day that changed the course of aviation history forever. The Tenerife Airport Disaster, March 27, 1977. A day marked by tragedy and sorrow. A date we'll never forget in aviation history. The images of that day are etched in our memories. It's still the deadliest accident in commercial aviation, a sad reminder of how fast things can go wrong. The scale of the disaster was unprecedented. Two big planes, a KLM Flight 4805 and a Pan Am Flight 1736, crashed on the runway at Los Rodeos Airport in Tenerife, Canary Islands. The collision was catastrophic. 583 lives were lost that day, changing air safety forever. The loss was immense and felt worldwide. This wasn't just something breaking on the planes, it was a series of unfortunate events. Lots of things went wrong, mistakes, miscommunication, and just bad luck all came together to cause this tragedy. It was a perfect storm of errors. It's a story of missed chances, misunderstandings, and the terrible results of a few bad decisions. Each mistake compounded the next. The Tenerife Airport disaster is a serious warning, a lesson learned in the saddest way possible. It highlighted the critical need for better communication and protocols. What happened that day made everyone change how they think about airplane safety. It was a wake-up call for the entire industry. It forced the industry to fix its weaknesses and make changes that still affect how we fly today. New protocols and training programs were implemented. Tenerife, even though it was a terrible tragedy, made the world of aviation safer and more careful. The lessons learned continue to save lives. Los Rodeos Airport in the Canary Islands was a small airport. It was nestled in the beautiful but remote island of Tenerife, serving mostly local flights and a few international ones. It wasn't built for the chaos that happened on March 27, 1977. On that fateful day, the airport was thrust into a situation it was never designed to handle. It became the unlikely scene of a disaster. The events that unfolded would go down in history as one of the deadliest aviation accidents ever. This wasn't the usual traffic. A bomb went off at Gran Canaria Airport, a much bigger airport nearby, and lots of planes had to go somewhere else. The explosion caused panic and immediate evacuation. Flights going to Gran Canaria were sent to Los Rodeos, and the small airport was suddenly too crowded. The influx of diverted flights overwhelmed the limited infrastructure. Two of these diverted flights were KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736, both big planes with hundreds of passengers. These jumbo jets were not meant to be at such a small airport. Having so many big planes created a huge problem. The runways and taxiways were not designed to handle such large aircraft in such numbers. Los Rodeos wasn't ready for so many planes and had trouble handling them. The ground crew and air traffic control were stretched to their limits, trying to manage the sudden surge in traffic. It was a confusing and messy situation, like a pressure cooker about to explode. The stress and confusion were palpable, with everyone trying to make sense of the chaos. To make things even worse, a thick fog started to cover Los Rodeos. The visibility dropped dramatically, making an already bad situation even more dangerous. No one could see, and the runway and taxiways disappeared into the fog. The dense fog turned the airport into a blind maze. This wasn't just bad weather. It was a big problem that would hide important things and help cause the disaster. The combination of overcrowding, confusion, and poor visibility set the stage for a tragic event. KLM Flight 4805, flown by Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, a very experienced pilot, was parked on the crowded tarmac, waiting to go to Gran Canaria. Time was running out. The crew was almost at their limit for how long they could work, and that added to the stress. They decided to refuel. It seemed like a good idea at the time because they wouldn't have to refuel at the already busy Gran Canaria Airport. They didn't know this normal procedure would cause a fateful delay. Meanwhile, Pan Am Flight 1736, flown by Captain Victor Grubbs, was also stuck on the tarmac at Los Rodeos, wanting to leave. They chose not to refuel, thinking they could leave quickly. But that's not what happened. The crowded taxiways made them wait behind the KLM plane, making the delay even longer. Both planes, full of passengers wanting to get to their destinations, were now stuck. They didn't know that time was running out before a terrible crash. Everyone was stressed, it was hard to see, and everything was ready for a tragedy. As the fog got thicker, talking to each other became really important. Air traffic control at Los Rodeos, already busy with all the extra planes, used radios to tell the planes what to do. The system was overloaded, and it was even harder because of different languages. The KLM and Pan Am crews spoke to ATC in English, which wasn't their first language, and that could cause misunderstandings. ATC told Pan Am 1736 to taxi down the runway and leave using a certain taxiway, which is normal. At the same time, KLM 4805 was told to taxi to the beginning of the runway, ready to take off after Pan Am was gone. But the thick fog stopped both crews from seeing each other. ATC didn't have radar, so they couldn't see where the planes were. Because no one could see and everyone was stressed, a terrible miscommunication happened. The KLM crew, maybe because they were in a hurry, misunderstood what ATC told them. They thought they were told to take off, but they weren't. This mistake would be disastrous. Captain Van Zanten, thinking he could take off, started moving down the runway. He was confident in his decision, believing the runway was clear and that he had received the necessary clearance. The fog was thick, but he trusted his experience and the instruments in front of him. The KLM plane, a huge machine, started going faster and faster in the fog. The engines roared as the aircraft gained speed, cutting through the dense mist that enveloped the runway. The visibility was poor, but the plane continued its acceleration, determined to lift off. At the same time, not knowing the KLM plane was coming towards them, the Pan Am plane was still looking for the right way to leave the runway. The crew was unaware of the impending danger, focused on navigating through the fog to find their exit. They communicated with the control tower, trying to ensure they were on the correct path. Neither crew could see the other, and their fates were tragically connected. The thick fog acted as a shroud, hiding the imminent disaster that was about to unfold. Both planes were on a collision course, but neither had any visual or auditory warning of the other's presence. Then, in a terrifying moment, the two planes crashed. The impact was sudden and catastrophic, sending shockwaves through the aircraft and the surrounding area. The collision was inevitable, a tragic result of miscommunication and poor visibility. The KLM plane, going very fast, hit the side of the Pan Am plane. The force of the collision was immense, tearing through the metal and causing immediate destruction. The passengers and crew were thrown into chaos, their lives forever changed in an instant. The crash was terrible, ripping through metal and hurting people. The scene was one of devastation, with debris scattered across the runway and the sounds of alarms and cries for help filling the air. Emergency responders rushed to the site, trying to make sense of the chaos. There was a loud noise, but the fog muffled it. The thick mist absorbed much of the sound, creating an eerie silence that contrasted with the violence of the crash. The visibility remained poor, complicating the efforts of those trying to reach the wreckage. The KLM plane went up in the air for a second and then crashed back down on the runway, starting a huge fire. The flames quickly spread, fueled by the aircraft's fuel tanks, creating an inferno that was visible even through the dense fog. The top of the Pan Am plane was ripped open and also caught fire. The damage was extensive, with flames consuming the interior and exterior of the aircraft. The passengers trapped inside faced a desperate struggle to escape the burning wreckage. It was a scene of unbelievable chaos and destruction. The rescue teams worked tirelessly, battling the flames and searching for survivors amidst the twisted metal and debris. The scale of the disaster was overwhelming, with the full extent of the tragedy slowly becoming apparent. The fog, which helped cause the crash, now made it hard to rescue people. The poor visibility hindered the efforts of the emergency personnel, who struggled to navigate the hazardous environment. Every second counted as they fought to save as many lives as possible. It was a race against time, a desperate fight to save lives in the wreckage. The rescuers faced immense challenges, but their determination and bravery shone through as they worked to bring survivors to safety. The aftermath of the crash would leave a lasting impact on all those involved. The Tenerife Airport disaster killed 583 people. But even with all the destruction, 61 people survived. Each survivor's story is amazing and shows how strong people can be, even in the worst situations. Investigators looked very carefully at what happened. People from many countries worked together to figure out what caused this terrible accident. They found that miscommunication, human mistakes, and bad luck all played a part. After the disaster, the aviation industry made quick changes. New rules were made to help pilots and air traffic controllers talk to each other better. These changes were made to make sure this kind of accident never happens again. The Tenerife Airport disaster taught the world important lessons. It showed everyone how important it is for pilots and air traffic control to talk clearly and follow safety rules. Remembering the people who died reminds us to always work towards safer skies.